Wild Arms is a game I have heard a lot about in the past as one of those overlooked JRPGs for the original PlayStation. How could a game with 5 sequels be overlooked, you ask? I'm not sure, but a lot of people I know have never heard of it. With its recent inclusion in the PlayStation Classic library, it seemed like it would be a game a lot of people would try. Then the PS1 Classic turned out to be a commercial failure, and the game looks like it will remain relatively unknown. But should it? Well, that is what we're here to find out. Wild Arms was developed by Mediavision, the first RPG the company made, and published by Sony. It was released in Japan in 1996, North America in 1997, and Europe in 1998. It was one of the first RPGs on the PS1, which could be part of the reason it tends to be a little overlooked, with subsequent release of Final Fantasy VII around the same time in North America, and a plethora of other great JRPGs throughout the PS1's lifecycle. What sets Wild Arms apart from other RPGs, especially Japanese-style RPGs, is the game's setting, which is inspired by the American Old West. Other than that distinction, it plays out like a typical JRPG, with characters traversing an overworld in between dungeons and towns, with turn-based random encounter battles that happen on a separate battle screen. By blending a 2D world with 3D battles, it feels like a bridge from 16-bit era to a more modern style that would later be adapted by many other games. Wild Arms tells a story of 3 characters. Rudy is a teenage boy who has the ability to use ancient relics called arms, which resemble guns. Relics that have tremendous destructive power, which makes them detested, and anyone who can use them is feared by the people of Filgaia. When the town he grew up in finds out Rudy can use arms, he is banished, despite using the power to save a local boy. Cecilia is a teenage girl studying to be a mage. On her 17th birthday, she is supposed to head home to the town where she is a princess and fulfill her duty to her people. Before she can leave the abbey where she is studying, she goes through a series of events that challenge her ability to serve as a royal. Jack is a treasure hunter with a mouse companion who fights with a sword and is looking for the ultimate power. All 3 of their paths converge on the same town during an impactful event, and from there they set out to save the world from the ultimate evil. If that sounds pretty standard, that's because it is. Wild Arms offers little to differentiate or innovate its plot. Where it does offer the most interest is with its characters. While I would like to have had more development, seeing as how there are only 3 main characters, still they are interesting and unique. There is time put into their characteristics and backstories that shows the creators wanted to do a little more than a generic RPG. The Old West motif is the biggest way they did that, but the characters are interesting in their own ways. The problem with the characters is that a lot of their development was backloaded, which is something normally done to create mystery, but the developers failed to pull it off properly here. The characters seem more flat than mysterious. The game offers a problem that is prevalent in games of its time, and that the story can be hard to follow. Not because it's convoluted or anything, but because without a journal it can be hard to remember what you were doing, or what you need to do, if you put the game down for an extended period of time. The lack of quest markers can have the same effect. The fact that you sometimes need to talk to every NPC in a town in order to progress the story or understand how or what you need to do can also be a hindrance. I know some people like that, and I don't like games easily spelling out what I need to do and how and where, but there were a few times I got frustratingly lost. I wish this game found a way to bridge those circumstances like it bridged RPG graphical styles. Also, the game offers little comic relief, which is strange to me because normally one of my biggest pet peeves is how I tend to find comic relief characters in anime and JRPGs overt and annoying. I'm not sure if the lack of comedy is a bad thing or secretly a blessing. The story isn't the only thing that is your typical JRPG fare. The battle system feels generic too, which is unfair to the game, seeing as how it was one of the earliest games to adopt a 3D battle environment. Still, it's your standard turn-based combat where you can use items or magic or attack or run. One of the things I disliked about the battle system was the fact that you input the entire party's actions in at the beginning of the turn, instead of doing it before each individual character acts. This, while not only being a standard convention at the time, provides a sense of challenge where a certain amount of strategy is required to win some battles, where it would be if the enemy AI wasn't so bad. There were so many battles I won easily because the enemies healed themselves when they already had full health instead of attacking me. The combat wasn't very challenging to begin with, so that made the battles even easier. When you combine that with the high encounter rate, the game makes you feel like you're grinding all the time. even though you don't really need to. Also, as someone who isn't normally big on using magic in games, it was a disappointment for it to feel like some of the spells, such as defense up or down, didn't feel like they did much. It only encouraged me to primarily use physical attacks while fighting. But the game had more pros in its battles than it did cons. While magic may have felt weak at times, the summons were really fun to use when you used them against the enemies who had the proper weaknesses. More importantly, the summoning animations didn't take forever like they tend to do in a Final Fantasy game. Jack's fast draw techniques in Rudy's arms are also fun to use. The repetitive battles were less annoying than they should have been because the battle music was so enjoyable. And one touch I thoroughly enjoyed was how when you were traversing the world map, the battle screen would resemble the terrain of where you were when your characters were attacked. In a forest, trees would outline the background. In a desert, it was all sand, so on and so forth. Also, if your character was confused at the end of battle, then when you got back to the world or dungeon traversal area, the controls would be messed up for a while. It was little quirks like that that showed the game's heart and had me coming back for more despite the minor annoyances I mentioned earlier. Overall, this is a fun game that I'm glad I picked up. It has some sequels that I hear are better, so I want to give them a look sometime. This is a hard game to evaluate. It does a lot of things well, but is also outdated in a lot of other ways, despite those things having been commendable when the game came out. That makes it hard to recommend the game to a general audience. In the end, I can really only recommend this game to people who love retro-style RPGs. If you like those games even a little bit, this is a game you really should play. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this review, please check out the other videos on my channel. Also, please like and subscribe for more similar content and share with your friends. And as always, have a great rest of your day.